Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the big show. This is the second episode of Dim Lights and Stiff Drinks, the dive bars of Seattle. We're interested in those juke joints, roadhouses, and taverns that have a long, interesting history and a seedy backstory. But we're not just talking about those places in the confines of some home studio. No. We are here live, on location. We visit the places where bad decisions and future regrets are made so that you don't have to. The first episode was a good start. We were at Woody's in Shoreline, and Woody's is a place with a juicy 100-year history and a connection to the prominent bootleggers of the area and the ghost of a dead overdosed heroin addict that's still living upstairs. And this week's bar checks off all the boxes for sure. We are at the Cabin in Shoreline, a bar with a 120-year history. They were actually operating before Prohibition. I'll be your host this week. My name is Louie. Feel free to call me Sweet Lou. On my left is Bob, man on the boards.
Hey now.
Next to him, we got Brad, the Stash Panda. And
Hello.
on my right, we got Jeremy, also known as Jay Dizzle, also known as Gaseous Clay.
No.
Let's.
We already trash canned that one.
Everybody.
Jay Dizzle I'm down with, though.
Everybody say hello. Jeremy, start off and tell us how you got that nickname.
Well, so first of all, if you go back 3-4 episodes, there was something about a fluffer nutter, fluffer master, something about fluffing.
Fluffer master.
Something like that.
Jeremy didn't know what a fluffer was.
I didn't. Yeah, it seemed like a perfectly adequate nickname. I don't know. I mean, it's really kind of up to you guys if it sticks or not. But Jay Dizzle just rolls off the tongue, so that's why we went with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were going to be Gaseous Clay unless you picked one. So.
So you better pick one.
No, not Gaseous.
All right. Gaseous Clay.
Yeah.
Brad, Stash Panda.
How you doing, my man?
Doing good.
And where did Stash Panda come from?
I think it was one of the episodes we did before, and that's what I was drinking that night.
That's
and
right.
then
You were drinking
I was
Stash
bestowed
Panda.
with the nickname Stash Panda.
It just seemed like a natural fit.
Seemed like a natural fit because I am the Stash Panda.
You are the Stash Panda. Brad is our resident historian. He's written 2 books. He wrote Seattle Prohibition, Bootleggers and Rum Runners. He's got a new book out called Seattle Mystic, Al Hubbard. He's also written for NorthwestHistory.com, been on Seattle Magazine. He's been in Time Magazine. Brad's going to tell you all about the history of the cabin later. Bob, I don't care if the mics are hot. Say hello.
Hey now, Bob in the building. Glad to be here, guys.
All right.
Here we are at the cabin, my first time here at this bar. So I'm looking forward to hear all the deep history and stories from the fellows.
Nice.
Awesome.
Did you say you didn't care if Bob's nuts were hot?
Mike was hot.
Oh, the mic. Oh.
Yeah, we're not at a baseball game. This is a different story.
Get your hot nuts, yeah. Get them on the hot.
Peanuts. So let's, usually in the show, we started off sending it over to Brad to talk about the history of the place. But first, let's talk a little bit about where we're at, because this bar is night and day from the cabin, right? Or from Woody's, the place of our first show. Woody's is on Aurora Avenue.
Yeah.
It's on a major thoroughfare that's all commercial. It's all business. You can walk 20 blocks down the street.
All business on Aurora.
And pick up a hooker here. If you want a hooker, you got to drive.
They're not called hookers anymore.
The hose at Lowe's.
You got to drive.
They're called
to the
sex-positive workers.
So, yeah, the cabin is actually in a residential neighborhood, and I'm not kidding. There's no commercial anywhere around here. Imagine you lived on
I'm looking out the back door at a pissed-off neighbor right now.
Yeah, imagine you live in a quiet neighborhood in the suburbs, and your neighbor is a bar. That's literally what this place is.
Oh, God, that's a dream.
And so, yeah, it's on Richmond Beach Drive, which is on the water. So across the street from us are $2 million waterfront homes. But this ain't no fucking bougie bar. I'll have the avocado toast. Can you give me the goat cheese, fig, arugula salad, and a glass of Chardonnay? No, this is a bar. I'll have a beer and a shot of whiskey and put the football game on the television.
Goddamn straight.
Tennis. Oh, God.
Yeah.
What kind of bougie joint is this with tennis on the TV?
Yeah, it's a strange bar, and it's not. It wasn't always this bougie. Just a couple clicks up the road, there was an oil refinery here. Just hard to believe in Seattle, but yeah, 1912.
Well, spoiler alert, Lou.
Brad's going to tell you more about this. So I think this bar was originally set up to be, people get off at the oil refinery, come down, get a couple drinks.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
All right. So yeah, Brad, tell us some more.
You want me to take it from here?
Yeah.
Good intro, Lou. So, yeah, as he mentioned, we're at the cabin in Richmond Beach, which is part of Shoreline. Technically, though, and you kind of touched on this isn't really a dive bar. I would call this more of an historic bar, right?
Yeah, neighborhood bar.
A neighborhood bar. Like dive bars, though, the cabin certainly has some gritty character to it that you can see here in the interior, which has a bunch of weird angles, tilts, and slopes. It almost looks like something from a M.C. Escher painting, right?
It is
go down
very
the main
surreal. Very surreal.
The tilted bars in your thing.
Yeah. Now, the reason for this odd architectural configuration is directly tied into the bar's fascinating backstory, which begins in 1927. So let's just all get on a time machine, and we visit this place in the 1920s. The area we are in now, and you alluded to this, there's multi-million waterfront homes right in front of us right now. Back then, though, there were no waterfront homes. It was just all open beach. There was a refinery down the road. And on the waterfront itself sat a bunch of
refinery,
docks.
I think.
Yeah. And this beachfront area is known as Point Wells. So on Point Wells, it was an industrial area. There's wharves, and oil dockers would dock there to load up on the fuel from the refinery. And there's also a railroad that runs through here. It's still active today. We still hear it from time to time. And there was a train depot nearby. So that kind of gives you an idea of kind of the layout of the land. Now it's
soot,
yeah, grimy
black
faces.
coming off the refinery dock.
Do we know why there was a refinery right here? Is it like some big ass pipeline or something? Why? Why did they make a refinery right here?
It was just where they sat. I mean, this was kind of a desolate area. It was far away from. So we're talking the 1920s. Yeah. This was in the middle of nowhere.
Out in the boonies.
Out in the boonies, so they just set up a refinery here instead of, probably in the city of Seattle.
Easy access to the ships bringing in the
the ships coming through, and then the railroad was right here too with the railroad depot, so they could load ships onto the railroad.
Yeah. Yep.
So they had a whole operation going here. Now, as far as this property goes, next door to here, back in the 1920s, sat a cafe. And behind the cafe sat a carriage house. Do you guys know what a carriage house is?
Mm-hmm. It's like a mother-in-law?
No.
No, man, it was carriages, bro.
It was for carriages, like you said.
Really?
Back then, before cars, that's where people park their carriages and their horses. Sometimes it was like also a stable. And then when cars became
like
a
where
thing...
you go to get your turbocharger installed, only they're like rebanding your wheels.
Okay. I need some feed for my horse and some new wagons.
Pretty much.
Yep.
For my wheels.
Yeah. And then, when cars became a thing, people started parking their cars in them. So there was a carriage house here. The cafe opened in 1927 and served all the nearby workers, as well as kind of the summer beachfront crowd. It apparently operated as an early burger joint known as Grace's, so they served burgers, and they had a soda fountain there. And one of the regulars I spoke to last week when I was here said it was Seattle's first drive-through restaurant. So people would pull through on their Model Ts and get their burger and soda. First drive-through, which was kind of cool.
Did they allow horse and carriage?
I don't know.
Was that prohibited from the drive-thru?
I don't know. That's a good question. They probably did. They were like, "Come on through."
For my horse and 2 deluxes and a special and 2 fries and
a root beer and call it good. So at some point, the property that the cafe sat on was subplatted, which meant that they had to move the carriage house that sat behind it. So the carriage house was moved to this spot here, and in fact, now serves as the main bar area down there. So that was a carriage house, and it's been repurposed over the years into this tavern that we're in now. Originally...
I think it still has the smell.
Kind of does have the smell, right? Originally, they weren't thinking that the carriage house had any long-term value. So instead of building a foundation for it, they set it on a bunch of logs, thinking, we'll get to it at some point. Well, they never did. And so over time... as the building settled and the logs deteriorated and rotted away, it kind of settled into the funky configuration that you see today with all the weird angles and stuff.
About
So yeah, we're
foot
at
and
the
a half
back
lower
of the
than
bar.
the other
We're at
back
the
of the
back
bar.
of the bar,
Yeah,
which
if you
is
go
an
to the
addition.
front, it's like walking downhill.
It's walking downhill. There's parts in the bar where if you set your drink down on the bar, it would actually slide down because there's so many weird slopes and stuff. Same with some of the tables.
Yeah, you notice none of the chairs on that side of the bar have wheels on them like the ones we're sitting on now because they would just all
That is
slide
a
on
good
down and
observation.
crash
You
through the
noticed
window.
that.
Yeah.
They took out the fucking tilted bar.
No, the bar's still tilted.
Up behind that wall right there.
Up behind that wall right there.
No jumping
Yeah.
ahead, Lou. Come
one
on.
sits
there.
Come on.
Cowards.
Now, for many though,
the best seat in the house.
The
So
weird
it's literally
settlement
at like a 40-degree angle. This
in
end
certain
of the
parts,
bar.
in
Yeah,
certain parts,
yeah.
because it's just because you got to think this building was sitting on logs, they rotted away, so you got all kinds of weird settlement going on. For many though, this is what gives the tavern its unique charm. This is why a lot of people like coming here. So the carriage house, it was converted into this tavern in 1933, and we kind of went over this the last podcast. So it was one of the first taverns to open when beer was legalized again with the Colin Harrison Act. So this is the last year of Prohibition. They're starting to loosen the liquor laws, and one of the first things they did was this thing called the Colin Harrison Act, which allowed taverns to sell beer again.
But just like 3.2 only or something, like 3%
It was, yeah.
or 3.5%
You,
or something
you
like.
couldn't sell anything higher than
Barely
3.2%.
beer. Yeah, barely
like
beer.
near beer practically. So this law went into effect on April 7th, 1933, which is celebrated every year as, do you guys remember?
Beer day.
National Beer Day. That's right. Good memory.
Right.
So this makes the cabin one of the
Come on,
oldest
cheers it
bars.
up.
Okay, we're going to do a cheers here.
Jeremy,
Lou remembered from last podcast. So it's one of the oldest bars in the local area, and it's also one of the oldest continually running businesses in Shoreline, which is kind of cool.
Continuously running.
Yeah,
Really?
in Shoreline.
Refinery ain't here anymore. Carriage house ain't here anymore. Drive-through horse and carriage burger bar ain't here anymore.
Well, the tavern's been in operation since 33,
Hell
so that
yeah.
makes the tavern the
Longest
oldest
running.
continually running business in
Crazy.
Shoreline. Yeah. Yeah.
and probably one of the oldest in Puget Sound, right? There's probably some of the Pioneer
no.
Square bars that trumpet, though, right?
No, there's bars up in like Marysville and east of here that go back to the 1800s that they somehow survived even during Prohibition. I think they were just operating as speakeasies, basically.
Or they were in fucking Marysville where no one cared.
No one cared, yeah. And I was thinking we might, one of future episodes, we might want to think about like visiting some of those. 'cause
road
there's some cool
trip.
ones. Road trip.
That sounds good.
So
So we
given-
can't drink if we're gonna drive back from Marysville.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. We have some logistics to figure out.
Shuttle van.
Shuttle van. Just hire an Uber. So given its location, it instantly became a popular working class tavern for all the nearby refinery workers, longshoremen, sailors, and railroad employees. This explains its maritime decor, and in fact, its old motto was, "Where ships and schooners meet."
There, I am looking at a sign on the wall. Wassman's Ship Repairs.
Goes way back.
Goes way back.
Since 1898.
1898.
And then
Yep.
on the other side, General Handyman. He doesn't just do ship repairs.
Yeah, this place is chock full of
he's a jack of all
memorabilia like
trades.
that. It's like
well,
all
if
over.
you look at the roof in the front part of the bar, that's actually a hull of a ship. It's even got the porthole in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the porthole. Now, Lou, did you
That's
did you
actually
notice
the
the
ship?
porthole on that wall over there? Take a quick gander at it because this is going to come up soon. So while Lou is checking out
There's
the
like
porthole,
multiple portholes.
yeah.
Plethora of portholes.
So now this is a pretty cool part. So one of the original owners of this place was a guy by the name of Dick Angevine, and he was one of the very few local tavern owners to serve steam beer. His explanation of steam beer was that it was beer that was made yesterday and sold today. So he was selling it as like, this is the freshest, tastiest beer you can get. We make it yesterday, and you're drinking it today. So this kind
So
of
basically, the first like hyper local beer, right? Because if it
Kinda,
were
yeah.
brewed yesterday, it couldn't have been too far away,
Right.
Back in the day,
They made it
so
themselves
this would
here.
have been, fairly local.
fairly local. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I kind of did a little research in this because I wanted to find out what steam beer actually was. So it turns out that steam beer back then was way different than the steam beer that you can find today. And the only example of steam beer
You're
I can
saying
think today.
steam beer like we've ever seen it. I
Well,
still
have
don't
you
know what
ever
you're talking about?
Well, have you ever seen? I think their name is Anchor Brewing. They're from San
Yeah, of
Francisco,
course.
and they sell the
Yeah,
cans
yeah.
of steam beer.
Anchor Steam, yeah.
That's the
Oh,
only
sure.
one I know of.
Anchor
But
That's not a steam beer anymore.
Anchor Steam, yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently he based this on this original steam beer method that they used to make back in the 20s. Now, so the way they made it back then was steam beer was a lager-style beer that was quickly brewed and fermented outside without any refrigeration. It's believed to have developed in mining camps where they had to improvise the brewing process and make do with what they had. Therefore, it was considered a really cheap and low-quality beer, but was really popular. And strangely, there was a devoted following of steam beer aficionados back then.
This sounds suspiciously similar to what is very hot right now, farmhouse style. Ale,
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm dying to.
We should
I
give a
tried
shout
to
out
talk
to
to the
Fair Ale
owner.
Brewing.
Well, I talked to the bartender before we started recording, and she didn't know anything about it, but she was going to run it past the owner to see if he knew anything about it. Because I was dying to find out if they even have like some recipes back there and how they made it or something, but she doesn't know.
It's the beer version of bathtub gin.
It kind of was, yeah. That's actually a good comparison. That's actually a good comparison.
Because you're the beer guy, Jeremy. Have you brewed, home brewed?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like
yeah,
you
for
have
sure.
to, like when you say we brewed it today and served it to you, you can't. It's got to sit for 3
Quite a
weeks,
while.
right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and ale
Yeah.
is weeks and stuff. You can do like cold lagering and stuff like that that kind of speeds up the process, but it's tricky. Yeah,
But
and
apparently
then-
they were making this stuff in like 24 hours.
That's crazy.
So I don't know.
So it was
A,
bad.
I
is
can't
what we're
imagine it
hearing.
being too delicious, and B is probably very low alcohol, right?
Well,
Right.
That's what takes the long time. The yeast has got to do its thing and belch out the alcohol or whatever. So
So you think it
you're
was even
bottling that
below
in a-
3.2%?
Well, I have no idea, but,
that's a good
probably
point.
fairly low alcohol, right?
Because the
If it was-
fermentation process
Yeah.
is when you, when the
that's
alcohol
when you get the
develops.
booze.
That's when
Yeah,
you get the
for sure.
alcohol. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, probably pretty low alcohol, I'm guessing.
Maybe it was fortified. They just poured some 151 and each.
Tasty.
Well, regardless of what it was, the cabin was one of the few places that you could get steam beer back then, and apparently the regulars all loved it. In fact, I guess they would make the steam beer and then put it in kegs and sell the kegs. And one of the popular things that people used to do back then.
Keg stands?
Well, on the beach. So they would buy
Keg
kegs
stands on the
here.
beach?
They would roll these kegs across the street because no houses here. It was just open beach. And then they'd have these beach parties with the steam beer. And so for many years, steam beer was this tavern's bread and butter, which was kind of
I
interesting.
think I saw that Frankie Valley movie with them.
Steam beer?
Steam beer
Beach
bingo.
parties. Yeah, beach
Steam
parties,
beer bingo.
steam beer barrel bust.
So another interesting thing, the
Guys
same
knew how
guy
to
that
party
was
back then, man.
So the same guy that was making the steam beer also back in the 30s kept a logbook of all the interesting characters and people who came through here, and he'd write entries about them, and then the entries would be illustrated by a guy that worked aboard one of the oil tankers that would dock here. He was also a regular here, and I guess he was an incredible artist. So for about a decade, they kept this logbook of
Illustrated logbook
of all these characters from the
interesting
30s.
characters who came to the bar.
Right.
Oh my God! Can you get your hands on that book?
I would love to. No one here seems to know about it. Again, I asked the
don't-
bartender about
Yeah, I
it.
know the owner. I know he doesn't have it.
It's
we would've
probably
talked
in
about it at
somebody's
some point.
attic somewhere if it hasn't been destroyed yet. But how awesome would it be to
All
find
right,
this thing?
we need a collab with like Treasure Hunters podcast or some shit where they go
right?
find like this crazy
I mean, can you
historical,
imagine
right?
finding this logbook?
It might be in the lake somewhere, so we're
Well-
going to need divers.
Divers.
We do have Brad, who also has the Instagram account Seattle Artifacts. He's also a famous picker of
Yeah.
and
Yeah, network
Oh,
out,
trust
man.
me, my mouth was
Yeah,
watering
network
when I
out.
heard about this thing. I would
and,
love
always
to find
searching
it.
his traps to find new
Yeah.
Northwest things. You got your Space Needle napkins from the opening, and call some people.
I'm going to make some phone calls right now.
out where that
or,
book is.
or we need a listener to call in with details.
Yeah, if anyone listening to this podcast
actually-
knows anything about this logbook, please let us know. We'd
they-
love to see it.
They found this book under their grandma's bed. Didn't know what it was.
That's all these weird
tossed it in the
drawings of all these
closet
weird
and,
people, and yeah. So anyway, it's out there somewhere if it hasn't been destroyed. So that's one of the many stories about this place. Great story here. So I had the chance to talk to some of the old-timers who have been drinking here since the 70s. And they all talked about a particular regular here who was known as Butch. No last name. Everyone knew him as Butch. Butch was a 300-pound longshoreman, an ex-sailor. He used to make these bets with people, like these $200 and $300 bets.
Whoa,
that
that's a lot of scratch back in the day.
Back in the day, it was.
It's like a $3,000 bet today.
Well, this was in the 70s, so
okay.
It's not quite as high. But
$500.
That porthole I was telling you guys about. So in the bar, there's a porthole that goes from the main bar. It has an open hole in the middle, and it probably leads to the kitchen in the back. I don't know what the circumference or the diameter is. I'm guessing like maybe 1.5 feet. It's not that big. So this guy would make bets, this Butch guy, saying, hey, I bet you that I can fit through this porthole. And people would be like, get the fuck out of here. There's no way you can. So they would accept his bets. And he would go through them.
Lest they known, he was like double jointed in both his arms and his legs.
Apparently, unbeknownst to everyone, was that back during his days as a sailor, he had learned to twist his shoulders in such a way that he could fit through it. Because apparently, I guess they used to teach this on ships. So if you were in the ship and the ship started sinking,
at bars,
your only way to get out of the ship was to get through the porthole, or you were going to drown. So it was like, Sailor 101. They would teach people, like, okay, if the ship starts sinking, this is how you do it. And
get your ass at the porthole.
They taught you how to do it. So he had the skill, and he knew how to do it. Now, I'm not sure. You guys remember that movie Lethal Weapon with Mel Gibson? And he used to, like, disjoint his shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
You know what
I'm bang it on the file case and be like,
God,
Get it back in there. Got to go back and do some police work.
Now, I don't know if this Butch guy, if that's what he was doing, because I don't know how the hell he crawled through this porthole.
Dislocating his shoulder so he could get through there?
So he could
had
collect
a
the
bum
bet.
shoulder?
I don't know. I don't know
Can
if he
you
did.
dislocate your gut?
I don't know, but he managed to get through this porthole, and he would just, like, clean house every week and win all these bets.
Wow.
Until
That's awesome.
his reign came to an end one night. When going through the porthole, his belt got caught on something, and he ended up pantsing himself in front of the whole bar. Now I'm talking the full Monty.
Did he win the money?
Now I'm talking the full Monty, everything hanging out in front of the whole bar. So that was his last time going through it.
Whoa. So now, was this guy illustrated in that guest book?
I think the
Full
guest book
Monty?
was a few decades before that, but that would be a great illustration, wouldn't it? Apparently, this event
His arms
was
are
the
on the
talk
other
of the
side,
town.
so he can't pull his pants back up.
Yeah, he was stuck in there. According to the regulars, he was stuck in there.
Damn you, irony!
yeah. With everything hanging out, everyone laughing,
Wow.
and he finally got unstuck. It was apparently the talk of the town for some time, and many of the old-timers still laugh about it to this day.
Many of the old timers like us. That's a fucking great story.
Great story, right? Can you imagine being there? So while the cabin doesn't have any crazy true crime stories or speakeasy tunnels or anything like that, rather its cool factor lies in its legacy as a working class tavern. It's a true relic of this neighborhood's past with some great stories behind it. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think?
That's awesome.
This is a really interesting example of how what can really make a bar, like an awesome bar that we're in now, can be the place, because it's just cool. You go in and just has this vibe and you love it. But it can also be like the history, like that we've been getting into, pulling its whole fucking podcast in the first place, right? But also just like the clientele, right?
Sure.
Like if you know, like, oh my God, who's been here? Sometimes that's enough to draw people into a bar, like just knowing that like X, Y, and Z dude. Usually it's like some famous guy that you heard of, and like, oh, I'm gonna go to the bar that whoever died in, or something like that.
Right.
But have a story of just like this Butch dude who had this crazy whatever. It was like, and you gotta wonder, like, looking around, there's 20 people in here or something. I would venture to guess 0 of them know of the Butch story.
No, some of the regulars that hang out in front, I recognize a couple, and they've been here. They've been going back here several decades.
We need to do a survey.
Yeah.
Who's
yeah.
the Butch?
Yeah. You'll get some hands raised,
Anybody
I'm
got
sure.
the pictures? That is an awesome story, though.
Yeah. And I'm really intrigued by the steam beer. Like, I was thinking,
Yeah, we need to do some more research.
well, if I was the owner of this place, how awesome would it be to, like, bring back the steam beer that it originally served? Like, find the recipe in the back and make the steam beer again a regular thing. I mean, this place could be, like, put on the map for reintroducing steam beer, especially with how into craft beer people are with all these obscure recipes.
Have
I
you
think
guys
it could become a thing.
heard of steam whistle beer out of like the Midwest? I think maybe like Michigan or somewhere out there. It's called steam whistle. It's like
No.
there's that. If you YouTube the drunk chef, he drinks beer and then makes food. He gets sloppy drunk and listens to metal and makes food. And he shotguns. He drinks these beers called steam whistle beers, and just makes me think.
I wonder if it's the steam beer, yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. You know,
Yeah.
and it's a lager.
It makes you wonder.
And it's a lager. So I just
Could be.
yeah.
I think there's a few steam beer versions out there. There's Anchor, and there's probably, like, in the Midwest version and stuff.
That would make sense. Though.
First of all, I totally want to fucking see that show where he gets drunk and cooks and stuff. That sounds awesome. But there is also, you guys heard of meat whistle beer?
But I wonder if you can really make beer in 24 hours, or if that was just kind of like a
Jer-
saying they used.
Like Jeremy was
a
saying, it's
challenge.
not going to be good.
It's not going to be
Yeah,
good.
that's a chance. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
it's impossible.
But this stuff, like, they couldn't. It was selling off the shelves back then. Everyone loved steam beer. They were buying kegs of it and having beach parties with it.
Is it because that was one of the few beers available at the time? Right? Like, it was steam or nothing?
Well, no, there were other beers available at the time, but most of it was just your kind of like just generic lager because it was 3.2%.
People had
So this
choices,
was something
but they
different.
preferred the steam.
They prefer the steam beer. Yeah. No, they
wow.
love the steam beer.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it just that their alcohol tolerances were so low that 1% steam beer was enough to be like, woohoo, getting crazy?
Well, either that
Or
or
drank
cut me off.
16 steam beers, cut me off.
Cut me off, Jebediah.
Yeah, crazy. Or could it be that steam beer had more alcohol somehow? I don't know. Like, is that why it was so popular? Because people, because
Oh, it's the world's first, like, malt liquor.
maybe I don't know. I mean, because they probably weren't monitoring the ABV when they were making the steam beer. It sounds like they were just cutting all kinds of steps. So they probably weren't like they could care less what the ABV was. So could it be higher, alcohol higher than 3.2? I don't know.
Inquiring minds want to know that shit.
I want to
Yeah,
know too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fortified. Pour a little bathtub gin in there.
Yeah, I don't
Call
know.
it good.
Yeah. What kept the
secret
regulars happy,
sauce
whatever it
will
was.
never be known.
Yeah.
Well, what are they serving tonight, Jeremy? Do you have a tap report for
Yeah,
us?
this is a good segue into Jeremy's segment.
Yeah, we got what you so. I thought it'd be interesting to talk about what a bar offers because it kind of tells you not only about the place but the evolution of the place, right? Because what they're serving now is I guarantee you is completely different than the kind of selection that the bar was serving, back in the day, 1930 or something like. Obviously with prohibition ending and stuff, and the assortment is different. But even now, like if you're a dive bar, what you serve kind of tells you something about the clientele, what's going on with your vibe in your bar and your,
For
the
sure.
area, the neighborhood, all that kind of stuff. So one thing we talked about last episode a little bit too is just, a Northwest dive bar got a pretty bougie beer selection, right? Like you can be of the diviest, slimiest ass, darkest, fucking skanky ass bar in Seattle, and you're still gonna probably have some really good beers on tap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have some good local microbrews on tap. You're probably gonna have a couple little decent top shelf boozes on whatever. So, and perfect example, right? Not a huge selection here at the cabin, but some awesome beers on tap. They have 8, 9, 10 taps.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's 10 taps is pretty decent for a small bar like this. Half of them are, well, more than half are awesome local micros. Right, we got stuff out of Bend, Oregon. We got a couple out of Washington. We got 3 from Kona Brewing out of Hawaii.
Yeah,
like,
they got
what?
Tiny Tim. I've never even heard of that one.
Yeah, like what the fuck in a dive bar? Like, okay, that shit's hard to find anywhere. And here we come to the Cavern, So selection, I would say, rating maybe a B overall. Could be better, but still, I mean, and then for a dive bar. Pretty kick-ass, right? The this is full bar, full alcohol, right? They got a whole selection, really, really limited alcohol selection. So you can tell, like, what are people ordering and drinking when they come here? Beer, right? They have like maybe 12 bottles of alcohol or something. Their quote unquote top shelf is like the only shelf, right? So,
the shelf, they call it.
But that's cool. And I come to a bar like this, I want a good beer and hang out and stuff like that. So it's fine by me. But if you were a martini junkie or something like that, you might be a tad disappointed. But to those people, I say get the fuck out.
Yeah, it's true. And come to the flavor of the place. Like we described the location earlier. You're on the waterfront. Every home across the street, even the one built in the 40s that hasn't been updated in 50 years, is still worth $2 million.
Oh, easily,
because it's on the water. Mm-hmm. And so
but they got a loud ass train going past them.
And a loud ass train.
That's got to be a little.
But still, if
that
you
takes $10,000 off your retail price of the house.
If you want to live here, it costs money. But when you look at the clientele, they could all be at Woody's. It's handlebar
easily.
Mustaches. We got some tank tops out there.
For sure, yeah.
They got
well, they reflect kind of its working class roots. This isn't like a bougie clientele at all. Yeah, these are like everyday people from from the hood.
God bless America.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, what just showed up? Are those girls?
What the hell are they doing here? Get out of here. Didn't you see the sign on the door?
This is a dive bar.
All right, so we can continue with that theme. What you drinking? So, and there's actually a pretty good story, Lou, for what you're drinking.
Yeah, me and Jay went up to the bar together, and what did you order?
I think so.
You ordered
she
the
was
silver.
Busier than hell, so I felt really guilty.
Oh yeah, she just had to make this.
What do you want? And
what did the people that before us order?
2 margaritas. No. Jalapeno margaritas, which I was fucking impressed that was actually being ordered and made before our eyes in this bar, because like I couldn't even see a bottle of tequila or whatever.
So what goes into a jalapeno margarita? Like, how did she make it?
Well, what goes into this one is
a trick
weird.
question or something? It's fucking jalapenos. A margarita with jalapenos.
They just drop a jalapeno in there? Do they they chop it up first? Do they
good
puree it?
Okay, not only was that an interesting drink to be ordered and made at a bar like this, I wouldn't have expected, but it was, she pulled out like fresh jalapenos, sliced them up there right on the bar, and then what did she finish it off with?
Pulled out an English cucumber,
fresh
peeled it,
English cucumber,
chopped it up,
peeled it, chopped it up. Yeah, what did she say, to like kind of mellow it out or something? And this was legit.
And the alcohol
shit, I was like,
was
what?
a twist too, because they made it with gin, right?
And to top it off,
gin margarita.
It was gin jalapeno margarita. Lou and I are looking at each other going, are we in like an alternate dimension or something?
That sounds like a stomach ache, man, in a glass.
What the hell?
Gin with jalapenos. Pass. That's a hard pass for me.
Yeah, and so we're watching these crazy ass drinks getting made. Going, I forgot what I was going to order. And I think I ordered Silver City. Silver City, one of my favorite breweries. They had Silver City on tap, which I always want to get that because you don't see it on tap very often. So I'm like, bam, I'll take that. Tropicaze IPA from Silver City, fantastic. You were gonna order that same thing, but got talked into something different, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I just said, I'll take what he's having. He knows what he's doing.
And she said, no. You get something different, bitch.
She said, first, you should get a Space Dust. It's 2 for 1 tonight. Or no, it's not tonight. She said, a Space Dust is 2 for 1. I was like, oh, 2 for 1 Space Dust tonight? And she's like, no, it's so strong, drinking one of them is like drinking 2 beers. I was like, oh, okay, haha. And then she was like, a lot of people come in here and order a half and half. Half Bodhi, Georgetown Brewery's Bodhisattva.
Sure, of course.
And half Space Dust, Fremont Brewery's high octane, or Elysium Brewery's.
Yep.
Well, Bodhisattva is
Bodhi's like a 7 too.
It's pretty high octane too.
Yeah, both of those are pretty high. Yeah, pretty high.
So it's delicious. And Brad, you're also drinking a hazy.
Yeah, I'm drinking a 10 barrel from Bend, Oregon. They're hazy, which is delicious. It's really good.
And we were just all commenting, like, all three of us ordered different beers. You got some kind of crazy-ass, like, half and half. Well, I don't know what the fuck was it. They all look identical. They all look like the exact same beer. It looked like we had a pitcher and split it. I was like, nope, three
if
different
you
beers.
walked away from the table and someone did some the magic cups and moved them around,
I had no clue. Yeah.
There'd be
you
no
have
way.
no
Yeah.
clue
Yeah.
which one was yours.
Good indication of what's hot in beer right now and clearly hot in our area, including the diviest of dive bars. Although, right?
The hazies.
Hazy IPAs. Hot.
Yeah.
We got three different beers. They all look identical, and they all look clearly hazy and IPA-ish.
High octane, more bang for your buck.
That's right.
Good summary.
Nice. All right, guys, let's take 5. Talk about where we want to go next. We got how does this place rate as a dive bar? Rate the jukebox. We can talk about how there's no jukebox.
Oh, no. Au contraire. Au contraire. There is, not only is there a jukebox, there is almost exactly the same jukebox as in Woody's that we were in Lothies 2 weeks ago. So, kind
Which
of
is an
interesting in
internet
itself.
jukebox?
Internet-connected jukebox. I can pull up my app. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm going to pull up my app.
You know what's kind of odd about that, though, is
You wanna give
if
it a try?
you look at the regulars here, none of them look like people that would be able to figure out how to operate that jukebox. So it's
Well, now
kind of
you're
weird
just
that they
getting
have.
offensive there, Brad. Come on.
Well, no offense
Offending the client.
intended at all, but
How the hell does this
it just
work?
looks like an odd choice for a
Where do I
jukebox
put my
in this bar.
quarter?
And it's kind of an unassuming jukebox. It doesn't look like a
No,
jukebox.
yeah, it's a little box on
it's
the
a little
wall with
gizmo on the
glowing
wall.
lights.
Yeah, so you wouldn't even know it was there necessarily.
And not exactly a Wurlitzer in the corner.
No.
So in all fairness, it's like A, you blink and you miss it, and B, it's like doesn't take cash and it's touch screen and
Yeah.
like, you're supposed to download the app and shit. so-
Again, the regulars don't look like they're
No,
using
no.
it very
Just
heavily.
like banging on it with his fist.
But the cool fucking thing about
me back my quarter.
an internet connected jukebox is we can go online and see what people have been playing.
Interesting. So what are the jams that have been being played?
Well,
Oh, you can see that?
yeah. You guys care to venture a guess what the cabin's clientele
I'm
takes
guessing
to
a lot of
rock out
classic
to?
rock. I'm guessing a lot of classic rock.
Playing some Zepp.
Some
playing
Zapp, some Who, some
AOR
Rolling Stones.
radio.
Yeah.
Zepp, Who, Stones.
Maybe some Bruce Springsteen.
I'm going to say Right Said Fred, I'm Too Sexy. Maybe some classic 80s jams. They got Berlin. Maybe some Depeche Mode.
I don't see a lot of
Maybe
Depeche Mode being
Cure,
played.
Just Like Heaven. Maybe some
You guys are bombing.
Pantera,
Really?
Cowboys from Hell.
Pantera.
You're just guessing now. You're just like throwing out
No, that would be
random
cool.
guesses.
And in fact, at Woody's, I think you both would probably be pretty spot on.
Because they were playing like the Deftones.
Yeah,
and they were playing
Woody's was very
some
eclectic.
reggae.
Lots of
They were
metal.
playing
Lots of
Buck Owens, some old
yup.
country.
All right.
So don't keep us in suspense. Once
We got a little bit of Eric Clapton.
Okay, that's cool.
classic
a
rock.
lot of blues. We got some Johnny Lee Hooker.
Okay. I can see
Jeff
that.
Healey Band, Robert Cray Band. What do we got? John Mayall. Robert Cray, Albert King.
Oh, so you got a blues head that's a regular
yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's probably the same dude.
It's the same
T-Bone
dude.
Walker. Oh, here we go. ZZ Top. There's
Yeah,
your
that
first
falls right in
classic.
there.
The one guy who figured out how to play it,
Rocket.
he's playing his
He's taking
his
over.
blues.
Blues Brothers movie
rotation.
soundtrack.
Nice.
Which is actually a pretty badass soundtrack.
That is a good soundtrack.
Canned Heat.
Nice.
That's
Going to the
probably
country
as
where
close
water
as
tastes
the
like
Led Zeppelin
wine.
as you're going to get, I think.
Well, and you said Eric Clapton, so that's
That's true. There's
in that
Clapton.
same realm.
Yep. That's Taj Mahal.
Okay.
What else we got here? BB King. Oh, here we go. George Thorogood and the Destroyers.
Definitely the same dude.
Yeah.
You can.
Jimi Hendrix.
Branching out a little
what else
bit. He's
we
feeling
got
crazy
here?
tonight. He's had 3 beers. Gonna bust out the Jimmy.
Maybe some ZZ Top.
Blues Brothers soundtrack, very popular. Very popular. Lots of repeats on that one. Muddy Waters,
Okay.
B.B. King. Yeah, good. A lot of blues. Which
Okay.
is cool.
Nice.
I'm down with
Yeah,
some
the
blues.
Blues Brothers
Yeah, hell
soundtrack
yeah.
changed my life.
Did it?
Literally, when I was 10, I remember we had the movie channel, and it came on there, and we didn't have cable. You just had the 3 networks and the movie channel, and they'd get a movie and play it like 2 times a day for 30
Now, was
days.
it the censored version of the movies?
No, it was just the R-rated version.
The R-rated. Okay.
I showed it for my kids one time. I was like, this is my favorite movie as a kid, and I didn't realize how many F-bombs were in it.
Oh God, those '70s comedies,
Kids,
man.
oh my God, earbuds.
Aside from that, like there's those 3 numbers in the beginning where they're putting the band back together. They go to church, and it's James Brown, the old landmark.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they go to get Mac Guitar Murphy, and that's Aretha Franklin doing Think. And then they go to buy the instruments from Ray Charles, who owns a music shop, and they do Shake Your Tail Feather. And then when they're walking through the neighborhood to go to Ray Charles' place, there's Johnny Lee Hooker doing Boogie Chillin'. And like, it was before you could record it, so I put my tape recorder up to the TV and recorded those 3.
Wow.
And that was it. I was hooked. Like those 3 songs, I just couldn't get enough. So like,
So was that like your earliest music that you kind of got into, that you were passionate about? would you
no,
say?
when I was 8, it was the Cars, Devo, and Cheap Trick. But that
Nice.
was like sent me down the old school road.
Okay.
So for that year, what I wanted for my birthday was 1, the Blues Brothers soundtrack.
Did you get
2, yeah, and I got that. And I was like, and I want an album by Ray Charles, and an album by Aretha Franklin, and an album by James Brown.
So you had pretty
and
good
some more
musical
Hot
taste
Wheels
back then
track.
for someone your age.
Well,
You were like way ahead of the curve
was
from
just
what I was
awesome.
listening to.
it was before
So-
MTV, so
Yeah.
So should I go ahead and pull up some Pantera? See what the clientele thinks?
yeah.
Cowboys from Hell.
Play I'm Broken. That's a good one.
The weird thing about an internet-connected jukebox, the world is your oyster, right? You're not limited to the 200 albums or whatever that's loaded
is it
up into the
basically like
machine.
Spotify?
Any fucking song you can imagine,
Really?
I can pull up and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play it on the jukebox. Boop, boop, boop.
Nice.
Okay, so we need to get somebody to come over to this table to talk to us.
My name is Brian,
Okay. All right, Ryan.
and
Introduce yourself, please. We have the holding down the fort. There's women that come to this bar. Sometimes she's the only woman in the bar,
Besides the bartenders, yes.
besides the bartender. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. I'm Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl. How long you been coming to the cabin?
About 8 years.
Okay, 8 years. Nice.
So- I'm a local Shoreline resident.
This guy too.
Moved in May of 13, and I didn't know this place existed for 6 months until a friend of mine went for a walk in the winter of 14, and he said, "Hey, you want to go check out the cabin?" And it's like, "And what cabin? Yeah, I've been to a cabin. What are you talking about?" So he brought me down here, and it's like I've been a regular ever since.
You're walking distance from the cabin.
No. I'm up the hill in Shoreline in like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's off the beaten path. You would never know anything would be here other than a house.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Nice.
And
the
I.
house back there is part of the property.
Yeah, that's right. There's a kind of a mobile home at the back of the property. I know the
Yeah,
new
right there,
owner
that's-
is actually going to rehabilitate that and open it up, and that sounds like an awesome place to live. Just walk down the deck to the cabin, right?
So, do you guys?
Two owners ago, the guy's name was Paul Gorgon. He lived there.
Okay.
Great guy.
So, I want each of you guys, if you don't mind, to share like your favorite story about this place, favorite memory, something crazy that happened.
My most recent memory, when I was a little boy, I'm 66 years old, and I had a Seattle Times route. Yeah, and I'm a Seattle guy.
bicycle?
Bicycle, except Sunday, I needed to go with a lot of papers. But JP Patches was on my route.
Oh, good. Great.
And I won't tell you the story, but I won't tell you my side of the story because JP has passed away. But I was in here telling the story, about a week ago at the end of the bar down there. And I made a woman sitting at the bar cry. Just sitting there.
Why?
It was JP Patches' daughter.
Wow.
And,
Were you making fun of JP and she was like, "That's my
I-
father"?
yeah, she was saying, poignantly how much she misses her dad, and kind of brought a tear to my own eye because I do care about people, and it was a very petty story, but it's a story I've always told.
That's a great story.
That is a great story. Yeah.
But you know what? This woman had the class to come around and just say, you know what, we got off to a bad start, but why don't we just start over? And I said, boy, I apologize, ma'am. And, your dad was a great guy. He did a lot of nice things for kids and the community. And she gave me a hug and a kiss on the cheek.
Nice. That's awesome.
And she did it later when she left. So there's some very quality people that come in here, present company excluded. But I just admired her because most people don't like negative things being said about their deceased parents. And,
Sure, of course.
She handled it in a very classy manner.
So how long have you been coming to the cabin?
Pardon me?
How long have you been coming to the cabin?
Since I was in high school. So early, like 1973.
Do you remember a guy named Butch who used to go through the porthole and make bets with people?
I asked him about Butch.
Oh, the porthole in the front?
Yeah.
Several people have gone through the porthole for money. I was never present during a porthole incident, but I know guys that were.
Okay.
I don't know Butch.
Okay.
But it's probably true.
Yeah. So Cheryl, why don't you share a memory or favorite story of yours?
Well, I have not been coming here as many years, but one of my favorite memories is about 4 years ago, when my birthday is next month, and I was, it was a pre-birthday, post-birthday pre-surgery. I had a hip replacement 4 years ago, and I love to dance. And I used to dance competitive ballroom dancing back in the day in the 90s, Latin. And still love to dance, still get out, go hear bands. But anyway, back then it was a birthday party here at the cabin that, we had balloons and, people were just, we were all, everyone here is very friendly, cordial, conversational, and I actually danced on the slanted road, over there.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So this was pre-hip surgery or post-hip surgery?
It was pre-hip surgery, but didn't take me long. I mean, I was in and out of the hospital, the same day.
So this is before your surgery, so you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck it, I'm going back, getting this bad boy replaced. So you're like...
Well, what actually dancing made me not think about it. It was like on a daily basis, dancing made me not think about it. But,
nice.
But, I've had the surgery and it's been good and no problem. And I actually, referral from a cabin regular turned me on to the surgeon that did the surgery. And I got my insurance coverage, who he was not a part of, approved outside network to do the surgery.
The cabin saved your life.
Yeah. Well, it didn't save my life. It just saved me from being able to not be able to move, But yeah.
It saved your dancing life.
That's right.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it wasn't heart surgery, Jeremy.
Yeah.
It saved you from having to pay out-of-network rates. Yes. Thank God the cabin.
You got that right.
Hip
Yes.
bone not connected to the heart bone.
And I could name names, but I won't, because he's not.
Do you want to interview Lee, Brett?
All right, we're getting ready to knock it on the head. Brad's got a bowl of clam chowder in front of him. We've got some bread to dip in that thing. We've got some fish and chips. We got some tots, or more fries, actually.
Well, take what we get.
We'll take what we get.
I hear the police are on the way.
Everybody for coming over and talking to us.
Interviewees, so I'm out of here.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
A lot of fun, yeah.
The next bar we're going to be at is, Brad,
Thank you. Yeah.
where we're going to be. We're going to be at the Sloop in Ballard.
Sloop?
All right, cheers,
LEW
brother.
or LOU or LU? LIU?
Just sweet motherfucking Lou.
Nice to meet you guys. Yeah.